Good evening, everyone. We are Group 5. My group members are Zhang Rui, Wang Haoze, Han Shuang, and Liu Siyuan. Today, our topic is research on relationship between environmental quality and foreigner trade of China. Our presentation is divided into 5 parts. Environmental problems generally refer to a phenomenon in which the environmental quality caused by the effects on nature or human activities on the environment around people, and such changes in turn have otherwise effects on human population and life. Since the 1960 years, environmental problems have been regarded as a country's domestic problems and should be resolved by the country itself. With the acceleration of global warming, the depletion of ozone layer substances, the increase in greenhouse gas emissions, environmental problems have become more and more important. Environmental problems have become a global problem. The environment is the basis and necessary condition for the normal conduct of a country's foreign trade. The nature environment provides abundant resources and energy for foreign trade. Environmental differences in different regions will also lead to differences in the relative interests of countries and the international diversity of labor. The current situation facing China's economic and social development is the coexistence of economic growth, foreign trade expansion, and resource and environmental pressure. With the continuous acceleration of China's process, the general expansion of economic scale, and the accelerated development of foreign trade, environmental issues had also become necessary issues in the process of China's social and economic development. In this research, we are committed to solving two research questions. First, what is the relationship between environmental indicators such as total wastewater discharge, exhaust pollutants, forest resources, water resources, and environmental investment, the total import and export trade. Second, what is the difference in their impact on the volume of import and export trade? The research objective of carry out the modeling analysis of the relationship between China's foreign trade and environmental issues, put forward some countermeasures and suggestions to promote the coordinated development of China's foreign trade and the environment. In recent years, the development of China's foreign trade economy and environmental quality has received increasing attention. This article analyzes China's import and export trade and environmental pollution, puts forward suggestions, promote the balanced development of China's trade and environment. Next, we will analyze the later review.
This article literature reviews from the following three aspects. First of all, the relationship between pollutant discharge and import and export trade. As early as 2001, Antweir, Kaplan, and Taylor, 2001 studied the impact of the openness of the international trade market on pollutant emissions. They established a theoretical model that divided the impact of trade on pollutants into scale, technology, and competition impacts, and then used the sulfur dioxide as the data to test the theory. According to the inspection results, it found that when import and export trade changes the composition of countries' output. The change in its pollutant emissions is relatively small. The estimation of technical impacts and the scale impacts brought about by import and export trade means that the emissions of pollutant from those source is reduced. Based on these conclusions, import and export trade seems to be beneficial to pollutant emissions. In addition, some studies have found that pollutant emissions have detrimental to the liberalization of import and export trade in the short term. In the long run, the liberalization of imports and export trade is conducive to the improvement of environment. DN 2002 found this significant impact based on the pollutant emissions from 1990 to 2000 and changes in import and export data. Huon, California, and Johnson 2007 found that the emission levels of six pollutants have no obvious curve relationship with economic groups. Secondly, the relationship between existing resource and import and export trade. Some studies believe that a country has many existing resources and will have a relative significant impact on import and export trade. The Grossman and Kluger 1995 found that if a country is rich in resources and the country have a advantage in producing population products, thereby increasing the import proportion of such products lead to such as environmental pollution problems. 于金平 2015 proposed that import and export trade respectively have negative income impacts and positive structural impacts on the environment. Increased trade openness will improve environmental quality. Existing resources are also important to degree of openness to import and export trade. Finally, the relationship between environmental governments, investment, and import and export trade. 看大学 and Liu 2016 found that foreign trade have a significant non-linear impact on environmental pollution, and its impact depends on the level of economic development, technologically programs, foreign investment, environmental regulations, and investment in environmental governments in each country. Investment in energy consumption is also very important because the structure of energy consumption is one of the important factors affecting carbon emission intensity. Thus, affecting import and export trade. Before 看大学 and 吕联局 Lunson 2001 also invested in energy consumption pollution control in the production process before foreign trade and of goods.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Wang Haoze. I will continue to introduce you. First, the valuable of paper, the choices of data and the model. After reading the relevant literature and the group discuss, we decided to choose the time series model in the economic model. Date from 2004 to 26 will be selected. The date interval is 1 year and the total number of samples is 14. Set the dependent variable as the total amount of China's foreign trade in import and export, and the independent variable as the environmental quality, and then further split the independent value into pollutant emission, extracting resources, and the environmental governance investment amount. For each item, we select the two most important indicated as the most independent variable as follows. Next, we into the data into views in order to reduce the influence of multicollinearity. First, take the logarithm of each group of data and perform regression again, and then use the stepwise regression model. It has found the TIPCI value has little effect on the model, and then delete it. The following united root test and the combination test are performed on the remaining data. It found that most valuable are first order difference dictionary and the EP is second order difference of dictionary because second order difference doesn't have reasonable economic significance. This value is detailed here and perform a differential property on the remaining variable. In the combination test, the p-value of the residual is significant, and the data showed counter operation, but at this time, the coefficient of variable TW is not significant. So we continue to test the model to see if the significance can be improved. In the next heterozygotic test, through the arch model test, we photographed that the model had the possibility of heterozygotic. In the subsequent autocorrelation test, the interval of the model DW value cannot be judged whether there is autocorrelation. So we use LM test model. The results show that there is no first order or higher order autocorrelation. Finally, according to the test result, for the problem of happy value of variable d log x1, we think one possible reason is that the sample space is too small for the model result. There is a certain impact, and the p-value may decrease after expanding the sample piece. The second is that the independent value itself may have too little or no influence on the dependent value. So the p-value is too high in the analyzed region. Finally, in order to ensure the accuracy and the rigor of the research, we decide to detail d log x1 to ensure the model results are close to the actual.
Conclusion and policy recommendation. Through the analysis, it is found that China's import and export trade and environmental pollution generally show a synchronous growth trend, but the relationship between the two is a concomitant relationship rather than a direct causation, and trade is not the culprit that causes the pressure on China's resources and environment. In terms of scale effect, China's trade-induced economic expansion is an important factor contributing to environmental pollution from the perspective of the effect of openness. The relationship between the trade openness and pollution emission varies with different pollutants, and the improvement of trade openness can increase the discharge of wastewater and reduce emission of waste gas. From the perspective of technological effect, technological progress has reduced emission of different pollutants, and the increase of water resources and foreign resources has played a positive role in improving environmental quality and promoting economic development. So the policy recommendation is stressing the concept of green development. We need to detail the relevant content and targets, explore ways such as legalizing established requirements on the appropriation of government investment in projects related to green development, and strengthen performance assignment accordingly, and persisting in opening up to foreign trade. Foreign trade plays an irreplaceable role in promoting domestic economic growth. Technological programs and industrial infrastructure upgrading. Although the expansion of China's foreign trade has had a negative impact on the quality of environment, China's export production is generally more resource efficient and environmentally friendly than domestic production. Accelerating the green transformation of domestic production and consumption. We need to step up research, development, and application of clean manufacturing technologies, speed up China's technological progress, improve the efficiency of energy and resource use, and constantly reduce the intensity of pollution emission. At the same time, we will accelerate industrial restructuring, close down outdated production facilities, and support the development of green industries, and accelerate the green transformation of foreign trade. On the one hand, we need to appropriately regulate the scale of trade. On the other hand, we will make green efforts to adjust and optimize the mix of imports and exports. And finally, strengthen environmental regulation and the use of legal and economic means. The development of pollution-intensive industries will be strictly restricted, and enterprises that fail to meet the environmental protection standards will be urged to rectify or even shut down. Corresponding encouragement measures should be formulated for the environmental protection industry to support it in terms of capital, technology, and export credit. We will speed up the establishment of carbon emission trading market and study the establishment of carbon financial system, including carbon funds, carbon insurance, and carbon securities. Thank you for listening.